Hey, this is a Hakawati production. Hello, humans, and any animal that might be listening along with you. Yeah, I know that sounds kind of weird, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's nothing new. We've all seen those shocking PETA videos and gasped in dismay and then gone out for burgers a few minutes later. But although we tend to sweep those horrific animal abuse images under the rug in our minds, they keep coming back, and it's getting harder to ignore them. There's an increasing number of people in the world right now, including very smart and high-profile people, who are speaking out about animal rights and also, by default, veganism. Like take, for instance, Prince Khaled bin Alwaleed. He's not only a vegan himself, but he also invests in all kinds of vegan and so-called clean meat enterprises through his VC fund, KBW Ventures. So what's this all about? Do we really still need to eat and use animal products to survive and prosper as humans? Or, as we develop new technologies and become smarter, are we evolving into a plant-based period in our history on Earth? Well, while you think about that, be sure you're subscribed to the show so we can catch up again soon. My next guest today is an activist and internationally renowned public speaker who thinks that all creatures should have the same basic rights, including the right to have autonomy over their body and not to be enslaved or exploited. Please welcome Seb Alex. Hey, Seb.
Hello.
So that's not a very Middle Eastern name. What's your story?
All right. So I'm born and raised in Lebanon. So I am Lebanese. I lived here 21 years of my life, and then I moved to Europe to continue my studies. And after finishing and getting my master's in architecture, I worked in architecture for almost 1 year. And then I quit my career to dedicate my time for animal rights activism.
So what was the reason for that?
All right. So when I was around 16 years old, I became vegetarian after talking to a friend, and she was vegetarian at the time, and she basically called me out on my hypocrisy because I really liked and protected and loved my cats, but I was also eating meat and hunting and things like that. So I was vegetarian because I didn't have a lot of information on veganism, actually any information. And after 8 years of being vegetarian, I watched a documentary called Earthlings, and I learned about speciesism and all the industries that are exploiting animals, and I realized I had no justification. And as a result, I realized that the only logical thing I can do, the next step would be to become vegan. 1 year after being vegan, I also started raising awareness about what's happening to animals because I realized although veganism is great and you're not contributing to the slaughter of animals, it doesn't necessarily mean you're stopping the slaughter of animals. So the animals would need people who are helping to stop what's happening to them. And that basically is what activism does. You raise awareness so that less people consume animal products. And I started doing more and more activism, and once I started doing on a weekly basis, I realized how great the impact is, and I just didn't feel comfortable being in an office 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, when I could be working on creating content or being outside on the street or in farms or slaughterhouses, raising awareness about animal exploitation.
So for you, talking about veganism, is it more of an ethical issue, or is there some scientific data to support veganism that you feel strongly about that supports veganism and a plant-based lifestyle?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Veganism in itself is definitely a stance against oppression and against injustice. So it's a very ethical thing. So when you're against speciesism, you're against it because you don't find it moral or ethical to exploit animals. Of course, there's a lot of scientific data that shows that it's also better for our health and much better for the environment if we relied on plant-based foods instead of animal agriculture. But those things don't really make the argument stronger. They're just extras. The argument of the ethics in itself is already strong enough. We don't really need the others. But that doesn't mean that it's not good to eat something that's good for your health, or that it's not good that people go vegan for health reasons or for the environment. All of it is appreciated. But for me, as a personal thing, it's definitely an ethical stance.
Yeah, so you mentioned speciesism, which is a new word I learned when I went to your talk a couple of weeks ago. What does that mean exactly?
Okay,
is it the new buzzword? It's like now
no.
not only you're a racist, you're a sexist, now you're a speciesist.
Yeah, no, not at all. It's actually been there ever since the creation of let's say, the vegan movement or the vegan philosophy. And it's basically simply the discrimination of certain members of the animal kingdom based on their species. So speciesism is discriminating someone like an animal based on their species. So protecting a dog while killing a chicken, you're being speciesist towards the chicken.
Some people would say, for example, the dog is a lot more intelligent. We have them as pets, whereas chickens, are chickens.
Yeah. So first of all, you'd be surprised by how amazing chickens are. I used to have 3 chickens actually, and they're really amazing beings. But other than that, when we talk about how intelligent they are, of course, dogs are more intelligent. But then again, pigs are more intelligent than dogs. Does that mean it's okay to kill dogs?
Is that a fact?
Yes.
How do they measure that?
The cognitive abilities and things like that. But most importantly, we have to keep in mind that IQ level or somebody's intelligence is never a factor for us to hurt them. I mean, if you find like a pig is just as smart as a 3-year-old, that doesn't mean you have like a human. That doesn't mean younger humans are okay to exploit or murder. You would never do that, because you understand that just because someone is less smart than you doesn't mean you have to be violent or unjust towards them.
Okay, you make a good point. So obviously, plant-based food is big business now. You have all kinds of fake burger meat coming into the market. What about clean meat? I mentioned at the top of the show in my introduction that there's Prince Khaled bin Alwaleed who's investing heavily into all of this industry, including into meat that's grown in a lab from animal cells. And he's also actually just invested in
fish
and milk. Milk grown from cells, and not just milk like cow's milk, but human milk. And he's like, his intention is to disrupt the baby formula industry with that.
Yeah.
So my question is, would you eat a burger that's been grown in a lab, knowing that no animal has been harmed?
Yeah. Actually, it's the clean meat market is definitely going to disrupt a lot. And the reason why I said fish is because just yesterday, they also invested a lot in a lab or a company that is making the same thing with clean meat, but with fish. Personally, I wouldn't eat it. Even if I don't see any immoral or ethical things. It's not something I desire anymore. I don't see the point of eating something that is grown in a lab when I can just eat something that's grown in nature.
Some people love the taste of meat, right?
Yeah, that's why it's great for them. If people are not going to give up because they don't care about injustice and what's happening to the animals, then they can just eat those.
It's a good option.
Those things. Yes.
Like for me, for example, I don't eat meat, and the thought of it really turns me off. But I'll be honest, if I smell someone making a really good barbecue, it kind of smells good, right? It's even if
that's the
meat.
Case and that was not harming any animal, then that would help a lot.
Okay. Despite the fact that it's been shown that that animal products are not beneficial to our health that they cause a bunch of diseases.
And everything else. Yeah.
So some people also believe that as humans, based on the structure of our teeth and the chemicals and tissues in our body, we're designed to digest animal products, and that we were basically put on this earth, that we have the right to eat animals, that there's a cycle in nature, that we have the right to use that energy or use animals as a source of energy.
Yeah.
How do you answer those people?
So it's important to say that we came up with the idea that there's this cycle that we can do this to animals, the same way that people in the past have come up with a cycle that some humans are here to serve other humans, unfortunately, like slavery and things like that. When it comes to our body and like just physiologically speaking, let's start in our mouth. Our enzymes our saliva is the carbohydrate digestive system. We start the digestion in our mouth. That's also why most of our teeth are flat and short. We are actually only herbivores. I mean, there's no video now. If someone's listening to this, open your mouth and shake it side to side. If you can do that, you're not a carnivore or an omnivore. Only herbivores can do that. And the reason you can do that is so that you can chew and grind all the plants in your mouth, because that's when you start digestion, once you start eating. And that's something only herbivores can do. When you go back actually down after you swallow inside your body, you have to look at the length of our intestines. Omnivores and carnivores, their intestines are 3 to 6 times the size of their torso. Herbivores are 6 to 12 times. And that's the intestines of the herbivores in the animal kingdom are 6 to 12 times the size of their torso. And humans fall in that category as well. So if anything, we definitely do fall in the category of herbivores and frugivores. Even if someone wants to make the argument that actually we're omnivores, we can eat meat, science has shown that we don't need to eat meat. And just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. So if you have the option to not kill animals unnecessarily, then why do you want to do that?
So what about people who are concerned about missing out on certain nutrients with a plant-based diet, like protein, vitamin B12? I mean, they make a point, and most doctors still today, if you go and tell them you're vegan, they want to test your blood. They're concerned and worried. Should they be? Is this a real concern?
So what I would say is definitely don't go vegan out of nowhere. Do your research, see how it is, see how what food contains what nutrients. When it comes to vegans, science has shown that vegans have between 4 to 5 different types of deficiencies, but when it comes to non-vegans, it's 7 to 8. So when it comes to nutrition intake, we're definitely vegans have a better nutrition intake. The ones that people should worry about, not even worry, but just be careful with it. Vitamin B12 is something that you should supplement, but science and the nutrition committees are also saying you should supplement whether you're a vegan or not, because up to 70% of the world population has some type of B12 deficiency.
Isn't that something that you make in your gut?
Yeah, so our body produces B12, but not always the amount that it needs. So I also recommend for people, if they have the opportunity, to do blood tests, see how your body is doing, and based on that start supplementing if you need it. But B12 deficiency could be actually extremely dangerous because it's for the nervous system. So I ask everyone to take it seriously, again, whether they're vegan or not.
What happens when you're deficient in B12?
It's very difficult to reverse it, and it's a very important vitamin for the nervous system, so it can have a massive impact on your body. I don't know the details of how it starts affecting you, but I've done the research, and all doctors say definitely don't wait until it's too late, because then it could be extremely dangerous. And B12 supplements, like whether it's pills that you can just take, or they come in liquid forms as well, are extremely cheap. So for example, if you're gonna buy the pills, B12 pills, you can get 90 for $6 or $7. I mean, that's
not if you're in
nothing.
Lebanon. Here it's $6. It's $25.
Yeah. Now with everything that's happening in the country, definitely. But even then, I would still say, if you're not going to invest on your health, where are you going to invest,
Yeah, of course. That's certainly not a reason. So tell me what you would eat in a typical day. I
usually start my day with a vegan milkshake. So I put oats and a lot of bananas and berries, and sometimes spinach or kale. It doesn't really change the taste. Peanut butter in a blender, blend it all up, and then have some granola with it. I have quite a big breakfast usually, and then for lunch it really depends where I am and what I'm doing. But for example, in Lebanon, most Lebanese food is vegan or can be veganized very easily. So if you just take ful, hummus, tabouleh, mshadra, fattoush, all these meals, people think of them as side meals, but you can put them all together and have a very good meal, a healthy meal that's going to make you feel full, and most importantly, not unnecessarily kill an animal. So that's that. And for dinner, I either just have leftover from lunch if I've made a big lunch, or just have quick fruits or something like that.
That sounds pretty healthy and easy to do.
Yes.
Actually, in the Middle East, it's really easy. And I think people become more deficient in places like the US, where once you eliminate meat products, you're really not left with a lot.
Yes.
Even Caesar salad has some kind of meat, they like to sprinkle it on everything. and so it's actually much easier than people think here. Also related to the region, I know there's a group called Anonymous for the Voiceless,
yes,
that was protesting recently in Beirut, and they were kind of called out by religious groups that they were saying that Islam does not. What were we saying? What was the problem?
So basically, I know what you're talking about. There was a group or an individual, I don't remember, that made a video saying that the activists were talking about the unethical side actually of eating animals, and he basically said that this is an offensive thing to the Muslim religion
because they have halal meat.
Exactly, but if you think about it, there's, first of all, so many Muslim vegans, all right? And one thing we know, whether it's Islam or any other religion, there's not a single religion in the world that says you have to eat animals. It just doesn't exist. The only thing that you have in the Quran, it means it's permissible. All right. And if it's permissible, it doesn't mean, again, that you have to do it. So I have a lot of religious Muslim friends that are vegan. None of them have any issues with that. You can be a perfectly religious Muslim vegan. There's nothing wrong in that. And what we have to keep in mind is that these animals are here with us. And what kind of, why would we unnecessarily kill them and think that's something good? You know, if you think about, like you mentioned Khaled Alwaleed, the Prince of Saudi Arabia, he's also vegan. So it's not something that comes against as like a stance against Islam in any way. Because
is there anything in the Quran that says that might actually lead you to think that you should be a vegan?
Yes, there is actually. That you should be vegan? Yes. There is.
I mean, because people always use religion and religious texts to justify different things.
Yes.
But then are there actually things in the Quran, as an example, that would say to someone, if you read it in a certain way, that perhaps you shouldn't eat meat?
Yes. So one of my friends who's a vegan activist, and she's a religious Muslim as well, she said the three things are taking care of your body, your health, taking care, not hurting animals, and taking care of the environment. And by eating animals, you're not taking care of animals, you're not taking care of your health, and you're definitely destroying the environment. So these are things that definitely show us towards that direction. Now, there's one part in the Quran where it also talks about on Eid al-Adha, the sacrifice that you make. Now, we have to be careful with this part, because obviously people think, okay, then on this day I have to kill an animal and give it to the needy or whoever is hungry and give it to the poor or whatever. Now, at the time, it basically said you have to sacrifice something that is valuable to you. That's the whole point of sacrificing. In this day, at the time, owning animals, people had their own animals and that was valuable to them, so they sacrificed them. And this day and age, you're going and buying the animal and then killing the animal, so you're not really sacrificing anything. So a lot of vegans around the world that are religious Muslim, they on Eid al-Adha, they actually sacrifice from their own time. They make a lot of healthy vegan food and they go out and they give it to the needy and those who are hungry and to the poor. So times have changed, and we have to actually, my friend that I mentioned earlier, she also said that in one point in the Quran, obviously personally I don't know which part it is, and she said it also says you have the responsibility to adapt to the time and environment you're living in. So that means if times have changed and a sacrifice for you is no longer killing an animal, then you have the responsibility to sacrifice actually something that is valuable to you. So even when it comes to Eid al-Adha, because that's the part where a lot of people think, all right, but what it says so in the Quran, so are we going to not do that? We have to keep in mind that times have changed, and you don't own an animal that is valuable to you. You're buying a new animal. And yeah, as simple as that. You can easily be vegan and religious. And again, not only in Islam, all other religions, none of them actually say you have to kill animals and eat them.
What about Christianity? Is there anything specific? I know someone stood up again at your talk and kind of explained his interpretation of what it says. He mentioned how Jesus at the last dinner served fish.
Yeah, there's a part where they say like he served fish, and basically he said that a lot of parts in the Bible, the idea of fish is actually the idea of knowledge, not necessarily fish as the animal.
It's symbolic.
It's symbolic, yeah. And even when that's not the case, if he actually gave away fish, it was for a survival situation because there was no food left. We have to keep in mind that we're not in survival situation in these days. You know, we all go to the same supermarkets and the same places to eat. We just choose different things. And you're not killing animals because you need to survive when you're in the supermarket. You're picking it up wrapped in plastic packaging. That's not survival. So, when it comes to Christianity and all other religions, again, just generally thinking what kind of compassionate God would actually make our food a sentient animal that suffers. A God, like a compassionate and loving God, wouldn't create our food to be an animal that suffers when we have to eat, you know?
I mean, when you showed some videos during your talk, and I've seen these videos repeatedly. I'm sure you can recommend some places where people can watch them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of videos that have surfaced from inside factories and slaughterhouses around the world. And what you see is really disturbing. And a lot of people that are not vegan really just turn away and they're like, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting reaction.
Yeah, of course.
Why do they react like that?
Because once they see that, they realize that it doesn't align with what they believe in. And if it doesn't align with what they believe in, then they shouldn't be paying for that.
But I think they also see it as propaganda for some reason. They would say, well, they're just showing that so that they want to get their point of view across.
Yeah. Well, that's not wrong.
Right.
I mean, the thing is, animals are so commodified, they're so objectified that we don't even think about them as sentient beings who want to be alive, We just go in there and buy a packaging, or we buy shoes, but it's actually the skin of another animal. Animals have become sandwiches and fashion accessories and things like that. So showing these videos is putting back the personhood of animals in people's minds. Like, I want people to see the slaughter and realize, wow, that's an animal that is being killed when there's no need to kill them. And you see how these animals are fighting back because they don't want to be hurt or be killed. So yeah, we do have to show that. It's not propaganda though, because if you think about it, if you can't even look, like, if it's not even good for your eyes, how is it good for your body? And if you can't even look at it, then why do you want to pay for it? If someone told me, like, hey, I'm going to show you how this bottle is made because you paid for it, why would I go like, oh my God, no, I don't want to see it? It obviously means...
Well, you might just not be interested. Some people are just not interested.
Yeah, but making a bottle, like, yeah, maybe it's not like a big interest thing, but a bottle isn't a sentient being. Like, the plastic isn't a sentient being. But these animals, whether or not we're interested, they're suffering unnecessarily. And that's just not justified, Some people think, and personally, I used to think the same thing, that veganism is about compassion, it's about loving animals. It's not at all about compassion. It's about justice. You don't have to love someone to not kill them. If I'm walking down the street and I see someone I don't even know being hurt, I don't have to love them to wish that they don't get hurt. It's enough for me to see that they're unnecessarily being attacked for me to realize, okay, this is wrong. This has to stop. So it's not about interest. It's not about compassion. It's simply a justice thing. It's not right, and it should stop.
Well, you make a good point, a lot of good points. And you talk a lot about how times have changed. Do you think that this is a part of evolution of man, that we're in this era where so many people are talking about this and kind of realizing that we no longer need meat or animal products, and we've developed all these technologies to create materials that are not animal-based. Do you see this as evolution?
I definitely see it an advancement. As evolution, I don't know, because if you think about all the things we've done in the past, all the horrible things, I wouldn't consider all of them a part of evolution. So just because there's a change, I'm not sure if it could be categorized as evolution. Maybe mentally speaking, to realize that hurting even an animal that is so, like, the most different to us, like a fish, is unethical and wrong, then there's some kind of mental and emotional evolution. I mean, maybe in that way, definitely. But I mean, as a species, as humans, if we just continue exploiting animals and funding this animal agriculture industry with the amount of animals that it kills, 84,000 animals per second, and the amount of deforestation and species extinction and the greenhouse gas emissions that it's putting out there, it's literally like the world going vegan is also a survival thing for humans. It's not only obviously for our health it's great, and for the animals it's the most important thing, but also for our survival. So if you look at evolution, a lot of animals do some changes to survive. In that sense, it's definitely a type of evolution.
That's a super interesting perspective.
Yeah.
But let's talk about fish and the dairy industry.
Yeah.
Because even you said you were vegetarian for 8 years, and then finally you realized that you didn't want to eat fish or dairy products anymore. Yeah. A lot of people don't think of those things as the same as animals or animal abuse. When you have a piece of cheese, it's like, great, we took a little bit of milk from the cow or the sheep.
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
All right. So again, I went vegetarian because I saw footage of slaughterhouses and farms, but I didn't necessarily understand two things. One is the process of how these products are made. Two is the philosophy of not exploiting animals for unnecessary reasons. I thought that we have to eat animal products. I thought that I need milk for calcium. I thought I need eggs for protein. So I never wondered if that's unethical, because if you need it, then it's justified, it's necessary. When it comes to the dairy industry, basically, the dairy industry is one of the main reasons I went vegan, because I was wondering, I was in Abu Dhabi at the time, and I was wondering, how come as a grown-up adult, like a human being, I'm drinking the breast milk of the mother of another animal? It doesn't really necessarily make any sense. Yeah, it's very weird. Like, I wouldn't even drink human breast milk. Why am I drinking cow breast milk? And I thought veganism used to be this like dietary issue that some people have to take. And so I went online and I wrote, why don't vegans drink milk? And I found the documentary I mentioned, Earthlings. And basically the way the dairy industry works, and again, you can bring the best examples with the least amount of physical harm caused. It's still going to be exploitation, unnecessary exploitation. But let's talk about how the dairy industry functions. First, what they have to do is bring a bull and anally electrocute the bull, which results in ejaculation. They collect the semen and sell it to dairy farms. In the dairy farms, they shove their arms inside the cow, and then with a metal, they also get the cow pregnant by inserting the semen inside. The cow, after around 9 months, gives birth, just like a human being. And that's when the cow starts producing milk. Cows don't produce milk for the sake of producing milk. They're not just like machines that for no reason make milk. They make milk for the same reason every single other mammal makes milk, when they have a baby, when they give birth. So when they give birth, if the baby calf is a boy, taken away immediately or after a day or two, and then sent to slaughter, because he is useless and he will never create milk, and his flesh is sold as veal. And then if the calf is female, again taken away, not slaughtered, kept on the farm until she's 2 years old, and then she will start having the same cycle as her mother of forced impregnation and them being milk. So the mother, they start milking her until she stops producing milk. By the way, when they take the babies away from the mother, they have the same reaction as like emotional reaction as humans and other animals have when their babies are taken away from them. So obviously it's very stressful for the cow to have the baby taken away.
You mean you see the cow when the baby's taken away? Like
they fight for it.
Oh, really?
They fight. Like I've seen videos of cows protecting their calf from being taken away and headbutting the farmer in the chest and doing everything she can, because it's her baby, you know?
Yeah.
So they start milking her until she stops producing milk, and then it's the same thing all over again, get her pregnant. After 5 years of this evil cycle, the cow just drops out of exhaustion, more or less 5 years. They're called the downers. It's because of emotional and physical exhaustion. And that's when the same cow is sent to the slaughterhouse for her flesh. And that's where around 50% of meat that people eat come from. So the dairy industry is the meat industry. And if you are vegetarian, just the same I was, you are paying for just as much, if not more, suffering as anyone eating meat. I mean, if you really close your eyes and imagine what we're doing to mother cows over and over and over again, it's so cruel that we can't even put it into words. Like, it's almost psychotic. Like, how could we just constantly forcefully impregnate an animal and take her babies away so we can have the breast milk that we don't even need? It's really bad, because then you go in the supermarket and you're gonna buy some cheese, and you see this beautiful face of a cow smiling, and then they have the audacity to say that the milk or the cheese comes from happy cows, which I used to buy. I used to pay €1 or 2 extra and feel good that I'm buying happy cow milk. I've been in dairy farms. I've been in farms in Germany, in the UK, in so many countries. There is not a single dairy farm where you can have smiling cows. All you can hear is babies crying and mothers looking for their babies. So, and if you don't, I mean, you can look it up. You can watch videos online. There's a very short video called Dairy is Scary. Very famous, very short video. I think it's like 5 minutes that just explains all of this, and you can see the images as well. And this is the industry practice. even, as I said in the beginning, even if we think of the best situations where, let's say, some people say, okay, we leave the calf with the mother.
Yeah, let's say I live on a
Yeah.
farm. I have 4 or 5 cows.
Exactly.
The female cow gets pregnant, has
Yeah.
her babies, and hey, let's make a couple kilos of cheese this year.
Exactly, yeah.
Can we take a little bit
Yeah.
of her milk?
Yeah, so let's imagine that best case scenario, you know?
Yeah,
like
that's a nice scenario.
Yeah.
She's a happy cow.
Exactly.
We love her.
Every single glass of milk that you have is a glass of milk that the calf can't have. And as long as, like, philosophically speaking, how can we justify taking something from that cow that can't consent to it? Health-wise, how can we justify drinking breast milk that we don't even need? So it's not in any way justified. Animals are not here for us, and as long as we look at them as commodities and as beings that owe us something, we're taking part in speciesism. So and this.
But if you're taking care of the cow and like feeding it, giving it food and water and shelter, yes, you're right. Sorry. In some ways, it's kind of like you're also giving something.
Giving back.
Giving
back.
But
The difference is that you are taking that decision, and the cow isn't taking the decision to have the milk taken away from her. There's nothing in that milk that you can't get from plant-based sources. And as I said before,
you can't make a good cheese though with anything else but milk.
Well, I would listen. I've had some pretty good vegan cheese, and the thing is, if you're going to talk about taste and pleasure, we can't really justify our actions based on pleasure. There's so many things that people do in society that are horrible, and they can try to justify with pleasure, but we would never accept that, from the worst types of crimes to rape and all these things. If someone says, well, it's really nice, I really enjoy it, that's not a justification. So even if dairy cheese tastes good, we still can't justify it. And the main issue is that we're trying to disrupt the society. We want society to stop looking at animals as commodities, as machines that owe us something. They don't owe us anything, and there's nothing in animals or from the body of the animals that we need for our survival. So the second you start taking milk from that cow from the best case scenario, you are confirming that animals are here for us. And if we want to end speciesism and reach a world where we have animal liberation, then we cannot do that at the same time when you can't do both at the same time. You can't exploit an animal, whether you're doing it in cruel ways or not, and fight for animal liberation at the same time.
Yeah. What about fish and eggs?
So,
again, the example of the eggs. I know you have good answers for everything, but I'm still going to try and catch you on a few things. Like, for example, you have some chickens.
Okay.
I've heard you say when you eat a chicken egg, you're eating her period. You're eating a chicken period.
Ovulation.
Well, you called it period.
Where
Somebody
at
did.
Top, someone did. Yes.
It doesn't matter.
On the front row,
Essentially, that's what it is.
Yes.
So this is not something that they need. They're not taking away from anyone, from anything. So if you have some chickens on your farm, you treat your chickens well.
Okay.
It's like a gift. It's a blessing, right? I don't love eggs. I'm not saying I'm being devil's advocate.
Eggs were my favorite meals as a non-vegan.
Yeah, because you feel like you're not hurting anyone.
Yes, and I also like the taste a lot. So
of course the industry is the problem. I know that.
So we can talk about the industry, and then we can talk about, again, like the best case scenario.
Okay.
So when it comes to the industry, basically, let's talk about eggs first of all. Eggs are the unfertilized reproductive system of a chicken. It's the equivalent of the human female ovulation. So people start the argument on, do you really want to eat ovulation in the first place? But I wouldn't even talk about that, because some people are weird and they would do that.
Hey, people eat a lot of weird things. Everything we eat is weird. Anything meat related is weird. You want to eat somebody's like thigh muscle or their butt cheek,
it's really weird. And okay, so basically what happens with chickens is that they lay eggs as a part of their ovulation. And chickens are supposed to have their ovulation between 12 to 17 times a year, kind of similar to women. But the thing is, they have been so modified and conditioned throughout the past hundreds of years that today most chickens in the egg industry lay up to 320 or 350 eggs per year. So that's almost having their ovulation once a day. Now, I cannot say how that feels as a man to ovulate every single day of my life, but I'm sure you and any woman listening to this can identify how unpleasurable it is to ovulate every single day of your life.
How do they make them ovulate every day?
Well, if you lay an egg every day, then you're ovulating every day.
But how do they make them lay an egg?
It's basically hundreds of years of conditioning and genetic manipulation. So one of the things that they can do is they keep the lights on the whole time, which makes the chickens extremely nervous and anxious, and that also results. It's also in the food that they give them, and also the type of breeding that they've done in different chickens to make sure that you keep on getting the ones that lay the most eggs. So you do that over a span of hundreds of years. You're gonna get not even hundreds of years, like just in the past decades, you're gonna get those types of chickens that unfortunately, instead of laying 12 to 17 eggs per year, having their ovulation 12 to 17 times, they're having it more than 300 times. So that's one thing. When it comes to the industry, again, there's the egg-laying chickens, and then there's what they call the broiler chickens. Broiler chickens are killed for their flesh. Egg-laying, they basically lay the eggs, and then when they're too tired or exhausted, they also are killed. Basically what they do is they separate at birth the male from the female once the eggs crack, and they put the males on a conveyor belt, and that takes them straight into a shredder, because the male chicks are useless for the industry, so they don't need to keep them. So they kill them once they're born, whether using a shredder or they put them in the small gas boxes, so like small gas chambers, or sometimes they drown them or put them in big plastic bags and just let them suffocate.
Actually, I've seen those videos. It's pretty crazy. And if you think about how people love those little chicks, when Easter comes around, they're so cute.
Else,
and then they'll eat eggs not thinking about what's really happening to them by the thousands and hundreds and millions.
It's unimaginable. Like chickens are one of the highest numbers of animals that are being killed and exploited. So this is the industry. And then, as we said, they put them in, for example, now there's this whole new thing like cage-free eggs. I've been in cage-free farms. Cage-free farms just means there's no cages. It still means that you can have up to 15,000 chickens in one shed because there's no cage. So it's easier.
So it's like it's not a cage, it's a wood house.
Exactly. And okay, we can talk about the best case scenario again, just to keep in mind that veganism is not about how to exploit animals. It's not to exploit animals. So I always want to talk about the best case scenario again. When it comes to best case scenario, you can have chickens in your backyard that are living the best time, having best days of their lives, eating well, having fun, playing around, and then every once in a while they lay an egg. All right, so someone can say, what is the harm in taking that egg? So to begin with, philosophically speaking, you are confirming that animals owe us something when they actually don't. Another thing that
well, hey, if people liked eating chicken poop, would that be wrong philosophically too? At some point you have to draw a line where you have to weigh the harm that you're actually causing.
Well, there is apparently harm that you cause when you take the egg away from a chicken. Basically what that does is, because of how chickens are nowadays, every time the egg is taken away, they feel the need to lay another one. And laying an egg for a chicken, whether she's in your backyard or in a factory farm, is a very painful process, because just simply the size of the egg in relation to their body, it's not easy or painless to lay an egg. Not only that, they also lose a lot of nutrients because of the formation of the egg. So once you do that, you take away the egg, the chicken's going to feel the need to lay another one, and that's going to cause them pain and anxiety. And this has been seen and tested by people. I've had vegans reach out to me and say, I was doing this with my chickens. They call themselves vegan, but they were eating the eggs. And then they said how stressed the chickens were getting every time they realized the egg isn't there. Now, one thing that a lot of people do, and I've done this myself as well, is if your chicken or the chicken living in your backyard is laying an egg, what you want to do is make sure that this chicken has enough nutrients, because she's losing nutrients every time she lays an egg, mostly calcium because of the shell of the egg. All you have to do is just break the egg in front of the chicken and watch how amazing it is, how crazy they go, and how much they love eating the egg back. They eat the egg back to gain all the nutrients that they lose in the process of laying the egg. Yes. You can watch videos of this on YouTube. There's so many places that do it. I've been in animal sanctuaries,
Interesting.
They have all these eggs, and you just break it for the chickens.
Can't they just crack it with their beak?
No, you break it for them, and then they go crazy on it.
You'd think they would
cute.
have figured it out, that they can just hack at it with their pointy beak.
Yeah.
No?
Maybe. I've never seen them do that, but I don't know. Yeah.
Anyways, what about fish?
All right, fish. It's really weird because for some reason, when I first went vegetarian, the first 6 months I ate fish, which means I was pescatarian, not vegetarian. But I don't know why I thought like they're not considered on the same category as all other animals, you know? Maybe it's because of the fact that they live in the water and we don't really think of them as like, not
Well,
advanced.
their brains are a lot smaller.
Yeah, but the thing is, it turns out I've been in a very interesting lecture that was comparing the cognitive abilities and the sentience of fish to other animals, and in so many ways they are more advanced than other animals that we talk about. So a lot of the things that they test is, for example, it's very simple. You do something to any animal that kind of hurts them or like it's not nice for them. If next time they prevent that, that's a sign that they understand, okay, I don't like this, I don't want this. And there's a lot of different ways of testing their sentience that scientists have tried. And in a lot of ways, a lot of fish are more advanced.
Well, definitely octopus. I've seen videos of octopus like finding their way out of a trap.
I know. It's really interesting. So again, we can always talk about like the fact that if they're not as smart, it doesn't really justify harming them. At the end of the day, they are sentient beings. They're not like plants, you know. They feel pain, they suffer, they prevent pain if they can. And
what really freaked me out was watching a video of how they pile them up into these big vats and their eyes bulge out and they're like suffocated by the piles of fish that come on top of them. It's kind of sad to look at.
Of course. I mean,
but when you look at like tiny little sardines, you wonder if really how conscious they are of everything that's happening, for example.
Well, science shows that they are. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the University of Harvard. They signed the animal sentience paper that's actually confirmed that all animals are sentient and they are aware of their surrounding and their experience, their personal experience. So no matter how different they can be to us, you know, maybe they feel less, you know, maybe they're less sentient than us, but they are still sentient animals who are experiencing their own lives and they want to prevent any type of suffering. Now, how could we justify causing any type of harm to them when we don't have the need to do so? Taking a fish out of the ocean is like basically, whether it's done in an industrial way or just one person fishing by themselves, you can imagine yourself maybe being tied by your mouth to
your
like
lip,
like a hook in your lip, and then just being pulled out of the atmosphere. Like the pressure that you would feel in that change of, the pain that you would feel in that change of pressure, you know, it's horrible. And maybe someone one day will create a less horrible way of killing them, but you're still unnecessarily killing them. So it's never really about how bad we're treating them. It's the fact that we keep on looking at animals as commodities or resources for us when we actually have no reason or justification to do so.
So apparently, like mollusks and these kinds of sea creatures, some scientists think they should be reclassified as plant life because they have not been proven to be sentient. Have you heard anything about this?
This is actually a huge subject in the scientific community, because the thing is, they're definitely not as advanced as other animals. Definitely not. A lot of scientists are talking whether or not they can be considered sentient. What they did find out, actually, that we can't deny, is that they have a macronervous system, and if they do that, usually that's a sign of sentience. So again,
but don't some plants have that too?
No, they don't. Basically, to be considered a sentient being, you need a nervous system and a brain. So a nervous system to feel and a brain to process the pain or pleasure or whatever. Plants don't have that. At least so far, we haven't proved that they have that. We definitely don't.
What about insects like ants? Again,
with insects, it's like less sentience.
Would you eat ants?
You know? No.
Would you eat any insect?
No, I don't have...
Worms?
No, not at all. but you know, it's interesting because sometimes you say, but we don't know that they feel. Well, if we don't know, then I'm definitely not going to do it, you know, especially when I don't have the need.
So what about, let me ask you this. What do you think about, because I know you have answers for everything, what about Eskimos who live in the North Pole? I know we're living in a world we don't need to eat meat, but some people do need to eat meat.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So let's talk about, actually, I recently learned that apparently Eskimo is a slur. And the real word...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
Let
didn't
me
know
rephrase.
that. It's Inuits, apparently.
Inuits, okay.
Yeah, I just learned that like a few months ago.
I totally respect Inuits. The fact that I use that word does not reflect my disrespect for
Oh,
them.
no, of course. I know. So basically, people say, okay, what about a tribe in the middle of the forest in Africa, or like the Inuits who live in places where they don't have
Where
access.
nothing grows during those colder months.
Exactly. So there's a few things there. One, to start with, those are the last people I would go to talk about veganism. I'd rather first deal
Smart
with
move.
I mean, we have billions of people living in cities where they have the option of not killing animals. I would start and finish first with that population and then think about the rest. Now, one thing we do know about like Inuits and other civilizations is that they import state-of-the-art weapons and clothing and everything else to survive and to hunt. If they can import that, they can also import plant-based food.
Yeah, but then you're polluting because you're like transporting stuff unnecessarily when you could very well survive off what's available locally. So that doesn't really add up either.
Well, they can replace transporting weapons to kill animals with transporting foods. And
why don't they just make their own weapons with sticks and stones?
It's not easy. Yeah, but there's also the part where the population of these animals are going down as well. So I would even go like as far as to say, if you live in a place where you can't even survive, the conditions are so harsh that you can't even eat what you're supposed to eat naturally, then maybe you shouldn't live there in the first place. Now, again,
that's exactly what my friend said.
Yeah. Now, but again, I don't want anyone to think that I campaign to like move Inuits from their lands and put them somewhere else.
Although some of them were moved there from more livable lands.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
That's not like I would never start a campaign against them because again, there's so many people first that we have to reach. To. And then
I just was wondering from an ethical perspective. And then what about this issue of some animals reproduce very quickly and don't have enough predators left, and they grow out of control. They become overpopulated, and they become a danger to the ecosystem and even to themselves because they're all competing for the same food. So in that case, there are a lot of places, for example, in the U.S. where this is happening. Is it okay to go hunt and eat those animals because
the population is going up. So it's interesting how there's a few points. It's really weird because with every answer there's like a few things that we have to mention. To begin with, if humans actually believe it's justified to kill any species that is destroying their environment, then we would literally justify killing humans because we are the worst species that is destroying the environment. But we would never go out there and start randomly killing people and say, we're like, our number is so big, we're causing so much harm to the environment, so we have to kill each other now. We don't actually believe that's justified. And if we don't believe it's justified with humans, why do we think it's justified with animals? Now, another thing is we always put the blame on the animals. A lot of places, the reason why this happens is because of humans, We either make one of the species that is their predator go extinct, or we just kill them. For example, like so many places in the US, actually, the department, I forgot what was the name of the department in the government that takes care of wildlife and things like that. They kill millions of animals every single year to protect livestock, to protect farms. And what happens then, you're killing all these like hundreds of thousands of wolves to protect farm animals, and then these wolves are no longer existing there and becoming the predators of other animals,
like deer and
exactly.
This kind of stuff.
And then these deers or other animals start producing more because there's no wolves left, and then we start killing the deers instead. Well, what about not killing the wolves in the first place and stop like animal farming so you don't have to be in that position? Now, still, this is not a solution. We're still talking about the main source of the problem. The only solution I can think of is unfortunately one that is never really considered because humans just don't care about animals, is the neutering program. If you actually care about the environment and the animals, you would put out a team out there that would anesthetize the animal and then neuter the animal and then release the animal.
But that brings up other issues of like, did they, based on all the arguments you just made, they didn't have the right to make the decision that they wanted that.
Of course. And it's still unethical. Yeah. But it's it's less bad than killing them. You're just unnecessarily killing them. Again,
sounds expensive too.
Yeah, but see, that's the point. Like, are we going to talk about convenience or like ethics?
Yeah.
So if governments don't care about ethics, they're just going to do the easiest thing. What is that? Give permits for people to go hunting and killing these animals. Instead of, first of all, again, my real solutions would be take responsibility, stop killing wildlife to protect animal farming, stop animal farming, and then you wouldn't have to deal with these things. If you're already so late, then you're going to have to do what is best for them. The same way we would neuter like dogs and cats, because the shelters are full. I don't like the fact that people do that, but I'd rather that they get neutered than shelters keep on euthanizing animals, you know? So unfortunately, if we have already messed up so bad, and that is the only solution, as you said, it doesn't go along my other points, because it's not ethical, the animal isn't consenting to it. Unfortunately, if that's the only thing we're left with, we would have to be doing that.
Well, you make a lot of really great points and a very compelling case for our fellow creatures on this planet. You've really convinced me on quite a few things, and I'm sure you've convinced other people as well, especially as you go around the world talking about these things. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you'd like to know more about veganism and animal rights, and you'd like to get up close and personal with the animals we're talking about, check out Seb Alex on Instagram. And while you're there, check us out too, hakawadi.fm and the Nadia Michelle. And be sure to subscribe on your way out. Peace.